What's up everybody, it's Grant bringing you guys a new video, and if you guys watched my last video, I talked about my first experience in a jiu-jitsu class, and at the end of that video I mentioned how I had tried out a couple other martial arts as well, and you guys mentioned that you would want to see me talk about the other martial arts that I tried. So as you can tell by the title of today's video, I'm going to be talking about my first Muay Thai class. So similar to my last video, I'm going to be talking about how the entire experience was for me, as well as comparing it to my years of karate training. Because obviously karate and Muay Thai are both mostly stand-up fighting styles, but they're vastly different in, different, outlets. So I'm going to be talking about the differences in the very short amount of time that I've trained Muay Thai compared to, again, the long amount of time that I've trained in karate. So let me first start off by saying Muay Thai is an excellent form of exercise. We started off, I believe, with skipping rope, which is used for a lot of fighters. I know there's a lot of training videos of people skipping rope. Absolutely great for cardio, and it kind of showed me that I need to work on my cardio a little bit. But we did that. We went into different exercises involving kicks, knees, punches, and things of that nature, just to get the blood going, get ourselves warmed up so that there's less chance of injury and things like that. And then we started to work on the movement. So the movement was a very big thing for me. In karate, or in the style of karate I do, where you have point fighting, you typically stand to your side, so your legs are, this way rather than, squared off facing the person. So I'd be sideways if I'm point fighting. So I'm bouncing back and forth sideways, so there's less of a target, say for example for your chest to hit. It's a little bit more narrow, so if you're looking for points in fighting, then it's harder to get points if that person isn't squared off. Whereas in Muay Thai, you're a little bit more squared off, so this was very, very hard for me to get used to the stance and the movement. Say for example, if you're close to the person in Muay Thai, you're not supposed to cross your legs. This is very hard for me because that isn't really the case in point fighting. So that was very different for me. So I had to learn how to stay squared off, so my heels weren't touching the ground, both my feet. Your hands are in a different position as well compared to karate, where I kind of keep them a little bit more away from you. Muay Thai, I keep them in closer. So that was a huge, huge difference for me, and the movement is still something. I think I've done, I believe, 3 classes in Muay Thai now, so I am continuing in Muay Thai as well as Jiu-Jitsu. But I think it's been 3 classes for me, and the movement is still something I find difficult, just because for me it's basically like unlearning the way to move and then relearning a way to move, but also trying to know both at the same time and be able to switch back and forth. So it's something that's going to take a while for me to get used to, just because I simply have to just learn a different way of doing it. So I guess it kind of can be referred to as like learning a new language, right? So the way I moved around when I was fighting is now going to be different when I do Muay Thai, the way you stand and things like that. Now, I don't think it'll take that long to get used to, especially if I practice it a lot, but it definitely is something that was very weird and different for me. I feel like it's easier if you've never learned any stance fighting and jump right into Muay Thai than if you were to do what I did and do so long of training karate and then try to switch into Muay Thai and switch your stance up, just because it's, like I said, completely learning like a different language of fighting technically. So in the very first class, we didn't get too much into kicks, which I was completely okay with because, I was pretty busy, like I said, trying to get that movement down. And we also started learning about different punches. Again, point fighting in karate is very different than the way you would approach fighting in Muay Thai. So, jabs and straights and things like that are very different because, they're not really techniques that are used as much in point fighting, because if you know point fighting, obviously you're just trying to be fast. You're trying to get that point first. You're not really looking to, inflict damage or anything like that in point fighting. So it's very different. So learning how to actually jab and throw straights, and again, still definitely learning how to do that. It was super fun, obviously. As I talked about in the last video, I've been a fan of MMA and a fan of Muay Thai just because I think it's really cool for a long time. So it was definitely interesting learning the different ways to punch. And again, similar thing to the movement, moving around with my legs. It was the same thing, like learning a new language of how to throw punches in Muay Thai, again, compared back to karate. So basically the rest of the class was trying to combine that movement with throwing punches at the same time. So that got tricky for me, obviously, because like I just talked about, both the punches and the movement are switched from how it is in karate. So now I had to combine the two at the same time and move while you throw the punches. So that got even trickier for me. And I know this sounds like, oh, it'd be super easy to do, but again, think about learning in a different way, trying to put 2 things together, your upper body and your lower body, in a different way than what you're used to, and time them at the same time. So this was actually super interesting to try to do. And once I started getting into the rhythm of it, it was definitely fun to try out, and it felt cool. And obviously, again, as always, is great exercise. But that was essentially my entire first class of Muay Thai. So as I talked about before, I've done more Muay Thai classes up to this date that I'm recording the video. So I've been learning, how to move my hands while I kick, which again is different from karate, whereas you'd keep your hands up like this the entire time in karate. You kind of move your hands down as you throw the kick in Muay Thai. So That's another thing that I'm learning that's different. But what I just talked about was basically the summary of the entire first Muay Thai class. Again, same thing as I talked about in my last video talking about Jiu-Jitsu. I found Muay Thai very fun, and as I said, I'm continuing to do it. I'm really looking forward to, learning the differences between karate and Muay Thai, and, being able to switch between them just like that. I think that's going to be really cool and beneficial for me just, learning different martial arts as a whole. But that's basically it, guys. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the video, and maybe some of you guys are going to try out Muay Thai, or if you already have been trying it out, maybe you guys can give me some tips and things like that. But hopefully you guys enjoyed. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.